this is mostly shining a light on other future potential concerns to the health of the game.
Distraction makers.
The One Ring seems to have started to become a problem in Modern. And I started thinking about whether or not the One Ring can be banned, which then sort of led to, well, what does that mean for Magic?
Before we start complaining a lot about Universes Beyond, give us a little like and subscribe. Also, if you're interested in joining our Discord, you can find a link in the description below. And today's video is brought to you by...
My game! Bullets and Teeth and Aliens is live on Kickstarter right now. It is a 2 to 5 player cooperative card game about blasting space bugs and getting paid. We just also added a bunch of new items to the Kickstarter. We added some play mats with my art on them, and we added a reprint of the first game. So if that sounds cool to you, you can find a link to the Kickstarter in the description below.
Back to the video. This isn't a video where we're going to be poo-pooing Universes Beyond because boo IP, we hate My Little Pony. Why is that in our Magic the Gathering
Who
game?
cares? Yeah,
Who cares?
That's not what it's about, especially because, you'll feel that way until something that you like is in Universes Beyond.
Everyone feels that way until it's like, oh, but like Marvel.
Or Elden Ring.
Oh, Elden Ring.
Wizards.
Oh, that could be cool.
Elden Ring.
Does seem like Elden Ring's like a popular one for people. I can't see it happening, but
it's not gonna happen.
I would love it.
Yeah,
I'd love it.
It'd be amazing.
So with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about maybe some concerns, some little conspiratorial, possibly.
A little bit.
Bit.
There's some speculation here, but I think it's more like the sort of logical things to think about. If we were running a company that was in this situation, I think these were things that we would have to think about.
There's a possibility that sets cannot fail when it's a Universes Beyond set.
Or it's a substantially worse problem if a set fails that is a Universes Beyond set. Because not only are you now risking your own sort of product line, but you're risking someone else's too.
Right.
So I think that this starts to create some really weird incentives in terms of the way that you design cards that go into these products, where we've already kind of seen this unfold in that so many of the more powerful cards we've seen lately have come from Universes Beyond, or they've come from things like the Modern Horizon sets, especially in the Modern format. Yeah. Commander is affected as well, but I think it's less of a concern in Commander, but we don't necessarily have to get into that. But, with the Modern Horizons cards, Wizards, I think, has a bit more control over how they sort of police the cards post-release, or at least that's my speculation. We don't know this for sure, but I would wager a guess that you're at least adding in one more factor when you're choosing to ban a card that's from a Universes Beyond product, which could create resistance to taking action when action is needed.
It's tough because, with the concept, the idea that these sets maybe can't fail, or it's going to be a lot harder on Wizards as a whole, it's a bigger impact if these sets fail, is really tough because I think they're trying to do so many things with these Universes Beyond sets, right? It's an introduction to new players that maybe get brought in through this IP that they really, really like. But they still have to make sure it's a selling product, meaning that there has to be things that are interesting to Commander players and to Modern players.
And how much of a disaster is it if someone gets in with a Lord of the Rings product and then finds out that either things in it are banned or that it's just bad?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, cool. I really wanted to play Gandalf, but
right. But if suddenly you can't play the character that got you excited to even play the thing in the first place, then that might be a huge reason why you might not continue playing. And I've literally been at a table, I've seen these moments where someone that has never played Magic, it lights up their eyes when they see oh, that's Tiamat. I know Tiamat from D&D, and they get that connection. If I had told them yeah, you can't play that card, actually it's banned, I'm sure they'd be like, oh, well, okay. Now suddenly it's there's things that I thought I could do and experience the game, and now that's subverted.
Well, and I think this also has shifted the focus quite a bit, where, previously people would get into Magic for the gameplay, right? There wasn't necessarily, there was standout cards, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't all that often where you would point to one specific card or one specific character and go, well, that's why I play Magic, is because I think that one thing is cool. Yeah. And it puts you in, especially in a TCG environment, you're in such a weird position where okay, well, if we ban this card for any reason, then we're taking that experience away from someone that may perhaps join the game only because of that thing. Right. Where in previous times for Magic, people were joining and IP was changing, and it was all sort of people being introduced to new things through the game rather than having these things that they like, introducing them to the game.
If there's any sort of a negative impact, right, to any of these Universes Beyond products, and for whatever reason, right, like clearly Nadu was a problem. And they saw Nadu as a problem that was big enough that they decided, okay, we're going to ban this because it was probably, we kind of talked about this in our video talking about bannings and stuff like that, but like more than likely it's that, is there a major negative impact on tournament play or product sales?
And it was pretty obvious that there was a huge negative impact on tournament play. Right. We had 2 major tournaments that Nadu basically ruined.
And in doing so, probably also affected some product sales in some way. At the very least, was not good positive press of what's going on right now in Magic. And so if that is also tied to another IP that is associated with Magic,
now you have negative association with Magic and negative association with that IP.
Maybe that IP or other future IPs are less likely to work with Wizards if this didn't go well, it didn't sell as well as they were hoping, or whatever. Yeah. We don't know if there's any sort of percentages or whatever that the IP, or if it's just a one-off licensing fee or something like that.
Who knows what the licensing deals are. They can vary immensely.
But perception, public perception is, I'm sure, something that these IPs care a lot about.
So another reason why it might be much harder to ban a Universes Beyond card is that the IPs themselves might have some sort of stipulation clause where product can't be discounted. This is, again, speculation, but this is something that is in the industry.
Right.
And that if an IP has put together some kind of a contract that says you can't sell any of these products at discount because it makes their IP look bad, then you're basically put in this situation where you can't really do something that's going to hurt the value of that product. Now, Magic is in weird speculation land where they don't really have MSRPs, so I don't know exactly where that puts Universes Beyond IP.
Right. I don't know if they have different rules for how they end up handling that.
But it's more about looking for points of resistance that might be created, not necessarily that these are happening. It's just that this could be a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, the One Ring, I think, is probably like the biggest indicator of this, right? Is that the One Ring feels like it is right on the cusp, if not already to the point that it probably should be banned.
It's definitely encroaching on ban-worthy territory.
Right. Yeah. However, that One Ring was like the reason, more than likely, the reason that Lord of the Rings was the highest selling set that Magic has seen.
Yeah, the One of One Ring was
the One of One Ring is so huge. And so if suddenly a month after Post Malone goes and pays $2 million or something like that for the One Ring, they say like, no, it's too good, banned. Like, that's, no one's going to have trust with Wizards again after that.
Right. I do think that it looks particularly bad for Wizards, and especially if they're trying to approach anybody else for an IP deal. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about, I think one of the things that is really getting missed here, the amount of investment that goes into making these sets versus making a regular Magic set, and also the amount of investment that goes into these sets versus a different game, something like maybe Fortnite. Yeah. The upfront investment that happens before the Universes Beyond stuff is released versus something like making a few skins that is their IP crossover in something like Fortnite.
Right. This is something that we were kind of talking about, and we both kind of had this realization of how actually like insane.
It's pretty insane.
What Magic is doing with these IPs.
Right.
It's very, very cool, but also like the craziest thing you could do.
It's cool that they are creating such unique game pieces based around other IPs, where when we look at something like Fortnite, they're just sort of creating skins. You're still playing the same Fortnite, it's just that now you look like Darth Vader or something.
Sometimes there's like, you can get like a lightsaber in Fortnite, so it's like a little bit things to tie in,
right,
but it's nothing crazy.
It's not like a whole new play pattern made for the, whatever the IP crossover is.
If we were to look at like other games, right, on average, other games that have some sort of cosmetic skin line or something like that with crossover IPs, I mean, we're not including licensing fees because we don't really know what the licensing fees are going to be, and there's lots of different ways of negotiating that. But otherwise, the upfront costs for like a line of skins is anywhere from, I don't know, $50,000 to $200,000. And like in some games that's going to be more, some games it's going to be less. It really depends. Like, are there unique animations, stuff like that. But generally speaking, it's around that amount of money. maybe leaning a little higher. Wizards, at a minimum, is spending at least $750,000
just for the art.
Just for the art for the game.
Right. We're not counting development time. We're not counting any of the additional, whatever it takes to get that product on the shelf. Right?
Meaning that this is at least millions of dollars. Right. And I'm not pulling that number out of my ass. I'm basing this off of, like, if you do Universes Beyond art, it's roughly $3,000 per illustration. That's sort of like a minimum for that.
Yeah.
And so if a set is 250 cards, that's a lot of art.
Normal set creation, right? These pieces of art are commissioned on a work for hire basis, which means that Wizard owns those pieces of art now.
Yeah.
They have paid the artist for them. The artist has said, you own this piece of art now. That isn't always the case when you do artwork for a company, but that's how Wizards does their artist contracts.
Right.
And so Wizards owns all of the art that has been made for, I would say, 99.9% of the cards that are in Magic. They own the art. Yeah. But then we get into Universes Beyond, and now we have a weird scenario where you're paying for this artwork to be commissioned, but you can't like use that art for anything else.
Yeah, I'm not sure like if they have something in their contracts that is maybe they could reprint like the same Gandalf art on different cards 5 years from now. I don't know.
I would assume not.
Right. Or if at the very least, like, do they have to get permission? Because now suddenly, well, are you able to just make money forever off Lord of the Rings?
Can you even reprint the cards? You probably have to renegotiate the same way that you would if you were doing some kind of like a licensing deal for a book cover or something, right? Where if you're going to go print another print run of the book, you have to renegotiate the licensing deal for the cover art. So we haven't even got into that problem situation. I guess they could go Universes Within at that point and reprint the cards that way.
Sure.
That's maybe fine. But like if they're trying to maintain the value of those cards in some way and they want the One Ring to be the iconic One Ring, they're not going to make a Universes Within version of it. They're going to want to reprint the one that they have, and in order to do that, they're gonna have to work with the IP again.
Right, which is going to cost more money. And I mean, to add on to all this too, is that the average time to maybe make cosmetics for a video game is going to be, rough estimates. All right, I've done a fair share of these at this point, but probably anywhere from like 6 to 8 months. I don't know if that's also including negotiating times with the company. Maybe a year. Maybe a year.
To get like a line of skins out or something.
Right, based off of an IP. Wizards takes 2 to 3 years to make sets now. Right. So for 2 to 3 years, you are working on this thing. And at that point in time, like anything could happen. That IP could become like not popular anymore. It could just be that maybe it finds out that the last Universes Beyond sets weren't that good, but they are committed now to the next 2 sets.
It takes them a long time to turn the ship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because they're working so far out ahead. So I think it's important here to basically say that, this is mostly speculation.
Yeah.
We are thinking sort of the logical steps forward and what barriers might be created by these decisions, but we don't know what's been negotiated in the contracts. We don't know what Wizards is thinking behind the scenes, but it's probably too early to really tell exactly what's been able or sort of what's able to happen now. I do think that the One Ring in Modern has put Wizards in a particular position where they might have to show their hand a little bit in terms of this card is becoming ubiquitous. It's almost a 4 in every deck. Now what? Where, if we go back, I mean, it's probably 20 years at this point, but if we go back and look at Skull Clamp, that situation was quite similar here, where it was an artifact that was in almost every deck, and that was the reason cited for banning it, was that it was homogenizing the entire play experience. So, it's probably too early to tell, but we might be approaching a situation in which we get to maybe understand a little bit more here.
One option is power creep it up, but at this point, Modern is pretty powerful, right? So really, they're going to have to probably do something. And that sort of then begs the question of like, well, how long do they have to wait then for a set where they feel comfortable saying, okay, well, now we can ban it. We feel like we've made enough money. We feel like the IP is like done, right? We're settled on that before they end up banning a card from it. If they'd never ban it, or they don't ban it for a whole other year, then I think that is cause for concern.
There's other options available too, right? Where usually the way that Wizards has handled things is also to print answers to cards and formats. Right. So they might need to sort of give it some time for the metagame to adjust, maybe.
Some artifact exiling or something.
Well, there's only like a null where you can counter an artifact or one blue.
Sure.
So we'll see if the metagame adjusts. I mean, at this point, it doesn't really look like it's going to. It looks like playing it is better than not. It's possible that they will print some kind of answer in an upcoming set so that we can get more of the metagame moving around a bit. Maybe that's the tack to take first, especially because it does seem like it's a little precarious to try to ban this thing. And we'll see. Maybe they print an answer and then that kind of solves the problem instead.
Yeah. I think what we're trying to touch on here, though, is I think a lot of the sort of negative things that people discuss about Universes Beyond is primarily oh, boo, I don't really want this IP. It's Fortnitification of Magic, whatever. And I think that some of those concerns are valid. I think that's totally fine if you have those concerns. But I think that really it's if what it does is bring in new players, and it's clearly been very successful at doing that. I don't want to say well, no, they just shouldn't do that for the sanctity of this game. Bringing in more players is not a bad thing by any means. I think that's great. But I think this is mostly shining a light on other future potential concerns to the health of the game in the long term.
And sort of hamstringing yourself in terms of what you need to do for the health of the game. I do think that Magic is a game about change, right? It always has been. There's always been things that have shown up that made people go, this is the end of Magic, right? That's this meme, right? And Magic's always dying, and it's always doing better than it has ever done. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't necessarily want to plant my flag on something and say this is the end, but this, I think there are some legitimate concerns here in terms of the long-term health of the game.
If it is the end, we won't know for another 5 years.
Right, because the sets are already made.
The sets could be being printed that are the end right now. We'll have no idea.